Japanese national government scheme for the emergency response, and JDR has a rescue team, search and rescue team, as well as medical teams with some other teams, technical teams. And I myself has been has in capacity of the UNDAC, UN Disaster Assessment Coordination with OCHA, and for the JDR medical team as well as the search and rescue team, which is this main topic, I will be deputy team leader for the Japanese government team. So that's very much about myself. And in terms of the search and rescue, I have been working in the INSARAG, International Search and Rescue Advisory Group. We call it INSARAG, and where we are colleague with Jorge. And in that one, in that group, we have a training working group, and I have been a member of the training working group, and establishing some training and the rules in terms of the search and rescue, international search and rescue. So that's pretty much about me. So over to you, Jorge.
Thank you, Tsukasa. Well, my name is Jorge Terrones. I'm connecting from Lima, Peru. I'm a lieutenant colonel with the Peruvian Fire Service, institution that I joined in 2001. It's through this institution as well that I joined the USAR team, the national USAR team, to which I'm currently an advisor since 2007. As well as Tsukasa, between 2014 and 2017, I represented the Latin American region in the International Search and Rescue Advisory Group, in which we were able to participate in very interesting projects. And since then, I've been working in capacity building for emergency and disaster management in disaster and conflict scenarios with different UN system organizations in South and Central America, as well as nowadays in the Horn of Africa. My experience with the USAR fields come from a personal experience. In 2007, Peru had a major earthquake in the coast. I was part of the local capacity, and I was able to witness firsthand the international response, and that's what struck me most, and I became interested in this level of coordination and how complex it was to coordinate with teams from different countries, languages, and so on. I currently work in Mogadishu, Somalia, where I'm able to see the other side of the origin of possible collapses. In this case, we have Somalia is not a earthquake-prone place in the world. However, they have structural collapses that are related to man-made origin, specifically due to conflict and terrorism. Okay, that's my presentation.
Right. Thanks very much, Jorge. It looks like we yes, just having conversation here.
It's good. It's good. That's great. It's always nice to talk with you, Tsukasa.
Right. It's always nice to catch up with you.
So let's jump to the first question, maybe, right? And the proposed questions, and we can both talk about it. I'll throw the question to you, and then we can interact. Okay?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So how does the preparedness and training for search and rescue in natural events differ from man-made ones? Are frontline workers training for different types of operation or risks?
Yeah, I think, I'll go for first. I think, the nature of the response and the nature of the hazard or, the humanitarian situation is totally different from the natural disaster, as well and the conflict situation or the complex emergency situation. Like you are very familiar with the Somali, and I'm not really exposed to the conflict or the emergency complex emergency yet. But I have been mainly focusing on natural disaster as well as a so-called technological disaster, which is man-made. And I think these nature are totally different, and as well as we still have commonality, both of them.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Stop here. Yes.
How are you? Good morning. Oh, good afternoon.
Morning.
Good afternoon.
Good morning, Jorge. Good morning, Tsukasa.
Yes. Luigi, I'm sorry, we're having technical issues, so we are currently reviewing the first question, the proposed one.
Okay.
and Tsukasa was giving us his input. So if you would like, we can continue with you from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. The first question is related to preparedness and training for search and rescue teams, and what happens in natural. It's a sort of parallel between natural and hazard and man-made disasters. Of course, I think that everything depends on the event and on what is called the so-called domino effect, because you can have a natural disaster turning into a man-made. If you think about tsunami in Japan 2010 and the nuclear power plant that has been involved. And on the other hand, you can have, for instance, an hydrogeological disaster due to a dam break. So I think the search and rescue activities and the frontline activities depends on the type of disaster. But when you think about search and rescue, sometimes, despite from the cause, the activity is mainly the same. Rescue people alive on the rubbles, or saving people from a disaster situation. So it's quite related to the typology of the effect and to the domino effect that it makes. But I think from a search and rescue point of view, the activities are mainly the same. There are big typologies. If you look back at USAR team, they are really exploring what are the possibility to use USAR team in a variety of situations, and that's good. It's good to explore because USAR team can be involved in multiple situations, even going over beyond the rubbles, beyond the collapsed buildings for an earthquake. You can have search and rescue teams wherever, in multiple situations. By the way, I just introduced myself. Sorry, I didn't do it before. I'm Luigi D'Angelo. I'm in force of the National Disaster Risk Management of Italian country, and I'm Director of Emergency Operations.
Ciao, Luigi.
Ciao. It's really a pleasure to be here to participate to this WHF.
Excellent. So, Tsukasa, would you want to continue from where you left, or?
Yeah, that would be really appreciated if I can, if I may finish. So I was just, touching up on, the similarity or commonality and the differences between the natural disaster as well and the complex emergency situation. And I think, commonality, as Luigi mentioned, at the end of the day, I think, the search and rescue, the goal of the search and rescue activity is, extricating the live victims from the rubble. So that's the thing. But, I think in an environment, working environment is a little bit different from these two. Because, recent, the Beirut blast actually witnessed, one of the example is, there will be an ammunition in the operation area, and there will be a different hazardous material, hazmat, and there should be a safety security issues, totally different things, and that leads to some the differences in the training and the disciplines, as well as the maybe accepting environment. Let's say the people may be a little bit hostile, so we might the team might get in the hostile situation. So these are the element that is different from the natural disaster, and likely to see in the emergency complex emergency situation. So over to Jorge.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in my case, I identify certain things in which they can be different. Definitely, the origin it's what separates them in the category. The user specialty somehow starts to respond to sudden onset disasters. 9/11 is a breaking point, which is man-made completely, and it raised so many questions about how can we better prepare for this. As mentioned by Luigi, also cascading events or domino events also have a very relevant importance, because we can start with a natural event that forward it moves into a man-made related event, as the Fukushima event, the Beirut event, and so on. In terms of the differences from the USAR side, I think capabilities have to be different. We're not only talking about the difference between a sudden onset natural event and a slow onset, in which you have to be prepared to stay for a week, or even a slow one in a flood or whatever, you have to stay for 2 weeks, 3 months, and so on. So that requires a way bigger logistics and also different techniques and training. But also on the man-made side, you also have to consider not only these rescue techniques, but also CBRNE, hazmat, and also dealing with explosives, guns, and so on. However, for me, the most relevant difference is what Tsukasa just mentioned. Meanwhile, in a disaster scenario, most of the time you're welcomed, you're expected, and you're treated very nice in many cases by the local population, because they identify you as someone that's coming to help and only to help. In conflict scenarios, you're definitely many cases, if you show up with a UN vest, or you show up with a foreign flag on your shoulder, you're gonna become a target. And the number of attacks, kidnaps, deaths of humanitarian workers on the field, it's only on the rise. So that's something that for me it's very important, because it includes another component into your response, which is the defense, the protection component to ensure the humanitarian access. So yes, in that sense, I think that there's a big difference, and something that we are still not in the completely prepared. In the scenarios in which I have been able to participate that had conflict or terrorism related, the response is very much delayed because of the protection. You have to set a perimeter to protect the humanitarian workers, and even the time that you might stay there, it's very, very brief. So it's something that definitely we should explore more, and I think it's a big challenge.
I agree.
That's my opinion on the first point. I don't know if we want to move forward to the second one, Lee.
No, I think we covered the first item. If you agree, we can try to go on with the second issue.
Yes.
If you agree, if Tsukasa and Jorge, if you agree, it would be nice to explore the psychological part, training of first aid. In my opinion, there's an issue related to the people that are involved, to the victim, let's say psychological support for the victim, and the psychological support for the rescuers, which is relevant for both cases. And maybe we can explore these two dimensions, which on one side, the trainers and the rescuers need to have a support after work, even to come back to work on shift under a so pressure situation. On the other hand, the victims that are supported on a psychological point of view can be even better, let's say, prepared to face what they are living, and to support on their side the responders. But I leave the floor to you on this issue. We can start from Tsukasa, if you agree.
Thank you, Luigi. I think I do agree with the two dimensions, which is one is for the victim, the psychological support for the victim as a humanitarian support or service. So that's the first dimension. And the second dimension is the what do you say? It's the acute stress disorder for the rescuers, as well as the relief responders. So in my case, Japan Disaster Relief Team, rescue team, we don't have the such a capacity to provide psychological support to the victims, those who are affected. But we only have is the psychological support, or more like it's not the very expertise, specialized service. But we do have a care system for the psychological support system for the rescuers, because as Luigi mentions, we might be encountering some very collapsing very sad situations, and these very difficult situations. So in that sense, the rescuers might get hard, psychologically hard. So we need to have the system to care with them. So that's the thing. But I think I would like to actually propose another dimension, the third group, which is supporters. And this is from my Mexico deployment, rescue deployment in 2017. September, there was a big earthquake hit in Mexico City, and my Japanese team was deployed, and I myself was deployed as a logistician. And in my team's standard operating procedure, we hired local interpreters, local drivers for the logistics, to be able to keep our search and rescue service going. And what I found in the Mexico, during the Mexico response, there are third group which we need to consider about, which is not the direct victim and not the rescue crews, but the rescue team supporter, which we locally hired, with namely interpreters and the drivers, because they are there as an the affected people, but they are trying to help us, who is coming from the international, and try to make themselves available for the rescue operation. So we need to very take care of them. And actually, one of the interpreter, who was a late teenager, she was late 20s, and she was working as an interpreter with my team. Dedicated to my team, but suddenly she was kind of collapsed, weeping, crying, because that the scene we are actually working on was actually her everyday morning commuting road, and she has been looking at the scenery every morning. So her normal life has kind of damaged by the earthquake, but we didn't know anything about that, and we hired her, and we kind of asked her to interpret at the site. So we realized that we need to provide a care for the supporters as well, as a third group, which is different from the victim, which is different from the rescue group. So that's let me stop here.
No, very interesting, really. And definitely as I mentioned, that sometimes it's neglected in international responses, especially because international responses, that you're going to be there 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then you're going home to when you're going to debrief, you're going to get counseling, you're going to get therapy, you're going to get everything to get back to normal. Meanwhile, the local support teams are going back to there. They're going back to staying as affected population. So yes, super important, and I'm sure it's not being covered by many teams. Adding to this, in my case, I think it's people may not be aware of this, but there's a certain profile in many USAR team members around the world, and it's expected somehow by society. They're expected to be resilient, to be mentally strong, to be able to cope, and I think this is what in many cases brings issues to this psychological question all the time, because if you're expected to be like that and being able to jump from disaster to disaster and recover fast, definitely going forward and saying that you need psychological aid or that you need to recover from a certain situation that you live is not as easy as it would be for people in other occupations. So it's something that I think has to be worked further on. Definitely, there's not much information about cases of these psychological situations developing into worse consequences. Let's hope it is because it's under control. But I will keep an eye on it, definitely. And I would also encourage teams or programs to go beyond that and do the counseling or psychological aid to the family members of these user team members. At least in the fire service, we have most of our issues ended up impacting the family members of the rescuers more than the rescuers themselves, because they're not aware of the situation. But they do have an impact on high rates of divorce or even issues at home that made up in not the best scenario.
Thank you, Jorge. I think this issue has been widely covered, and I honestly agree with what you say there with the findings that came out from our discussion. We have a third point related to a bridge between researchers and user teams, and how they can. Just to start, I would say that in Italy we based all our activity and decision-making process on the evidence of researchers of what technologies or universities or community arena can provide us with. Lastly, with the COVID situation, the experts and the epidemiologists drove us through a decision-making process. And if we convert this into the field, collapsed buildings, search and rescue activities, it's mandatory that the work must be done in a safety environment, especially for the rescuers. And so having the support of experts in providing what are the safety paths to be followed. And I would say in some cases, rescuers are themselves researchers. We have engineers, we have experts in risk, in collapsed buildings, in order to address the correct activities of their team. So I think this bridge is mandatory, I would say, fundamental in my experience, and as well as emergency coordinator, but even being part of activities on the field directly. So again, the floor is to you. We can start from Tsukasa if you agree, and then we go to Jorge. Thank you very much.
Jorge, would you like to go first?
No worries. No, this is a subject that I personally like a lot, and that actually has taken me to travel to study outside. Well, initially when I joined the user team specialty, of course, I was more driven to the operational part, to the actual rescue part of the operation of the whole thing. But I quickly found out that there's way more than that. The coordination mechanisms and the leadership skills and everything that you can do to increase the efficiency of the operation. It's very much interesting. So I decided in 2006 to 2015 to go to the UK to study on a master's in something related, which was already a difficult starting point, because there is no specific master program that I have that I identified in what we're talking about. There's related, complementary, but not a specific. As I joined, and I'm sure you might have experienced this as well, most of the focus of the academics nowadays is on reducing what we're talking about, on reducing the response, the reactive, the rescue part, on auditing how good it is. Is it really worth it? Aren't we spending too much money on this? shouldn't be spending more money on prevention, reduction, mitigation of risk? Yes, absolutely. There's something that I think we all agree. There's no one in the world that may not agree in this. But in between, we have to be very much aware that there's going to be an earthquake tomorrow somewhere in the world. This place is not going to be prepared, and international response is going to be necessary. And we cannot neglect 100% that part of the disaster management, because it's going to happen. It's an ongoing thing. It's an existing vulnerability, an existing risk, and it's something that you have to focus on. So when I was doing my studies, I proposed my thesis program about this, about national user teams in the Latin American region, and I have to say that I found high resistance from my professors and programs, because it was like, no, this is a subject that is already not that relevant anymore. We should focus on prevention. We should focus on reducing risk. And I realized that there was this natural resistance, but not only from that side, because later when joining user team members and so on, and explaining to them that I was studying this program, there was always also resistance, like saying, yeah, okay, these academics, they write a lot of papers, but they actually don't know how operations on the field are. They think we're just using hammers and nails and cutting wood and laying bricks. When they're actually, that's the easiest part of the response. The more complex and the most demanding of the skills part is the coordination, which can really be benefited so much from the academics. So I think that there's been a huge gap, and even going sideways in which is more important. I think that the bridge has been there, but I think there should be a way in which it could be tighter, the relation, and we could actually focus on how to improve the response, instead of questioning it and reviewing if it's necessary or not. We will all agree that in an ideal world, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have a single user team member. But we are not living in an ideal world. We're living in a world that even if we have all our risks mapped and controlled and mitigated, a new one can appear. So we're always going to need this kind of response. It should always be professional. It should always be efficient, and that's why this relation is necessary. And I really don't think it's going to be disappearing anytime soon. To you, Tsukasa.
Yeah, thanks very much. I was hearing your story, very, very interesting. Especially the master thesis, because I personally know you went to the UK for the study, so that was a very nice catch up to understand what you have done there. So, well, in terms of this, the bridging between the researchers and the actual practical practice of the search and rescue, I think I do agree with the statement that research, the bridging between researchers and SIR operators will help improve SIR efficiency. Yes, definitely. So because we need to have an evidence to do some work, and everything is based on the evidence. So we need to appreciate the researchers the result. At the same time, I interpreted from a perspective of the technological advancement, or in terms of the researches, the relationship or researches in terms of the technology, such as user teams uses Jorge, more about this. We have sound, acoustic, the visual cameras, many things, and then these and then sometimes we are now let's say some teams are very, very keen using drone, UAV system, as well as an augmented reality for the training, that kind of things. These are all based on the researches, and we definitely need to involve the researches into our practices, so that we can have better efficient operation. So we do agree with these two, marriage of these two things are very, very important. Luigi.
Yes, thank you very much, Jorge and Tsukasa, for your interventions on these. I would go on with the fourth point in agenda, which is related to how the civilians behave during an emergency and what mistakes they make. In my personal experience, there are different issues related to the fact that, first of all, the behavior in certain cases, probably most of the cases, is related to, let's say, an ignorance on what's going on, a not full awareness of what is happening and what should I do when something happens. So, of course, there are mistakes. I try to help my relatives, but I don't have all the tools in my hands and in my head to know what I have to do. On the other hand, I'm there, I want to see what's happening, and it's a problem as well. And then I want to be somehow helpful, but I'm not prepared. I didn't have any training. So what I would say is that it's very important that civilians, which are not, of course, directly involved in the work, they are not, if they are not search and rescues, they are not operators. It's better to listen what the authorities have to say to them, and listen to what the operators can say to them, what's the safe place to stay, which is better than many other things to do, because otherwise can be an additional problem and criticalities to the ongoing works of search and rescue. So first of all, it's very important to be informed on the different risks that can threaten the area where we live in, and what is the most appropriate behavior to take when something happens. Of course, be curious on what the authorities and institutions would do in case of an emergency happens, if they have a plan, if they have a contingency plan or procedure. So my suggestion to the civilians, let's say, has indicated in the agenda, in the different points, is to be informed as much as possible on what are the risks of the area we live in and what are the most appropriate behavior to not become a problem when something happens. So again, the floor is yours. I don't know who goes first, Tsukasa or Jorge, but I leave the floor to you. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. Luigi, thank you very much. Let me mention about Jorge. I can see sun is coming up at the
Yes, it's the beginning of the day here in this part of the world.
Good morning. Another thing. Thanks, Luigi. I think yes, you mentioned a very, very important point. I'd like to mention something about I do agree with you. Ignorance. What you mentioned. I'd like to mention something about let's say I think my point is divided into 2 points. One is sometimes incoming or especially international search and rescue team or some other relief activity provider, relief service providers tends to be thinking like, we are the main character of this drama. But actually, this is totally, I think not the wrong, but I think it's still we need to respect the local, how people feel and how people think, how people work at the local level. So sometimes international search and rescue team comes, what's up, we came, or something like this, and sometimes put some international regulations and international rules and methodology, try to work on this kind of international known methodology. But what's most important thing is what local resilience actually cope with this calamity or crisis or humanitarian situation. So I think it's not like helpers and helpees relationship. It's more like, helpers coming from the international, but that isn't actually added muscle. And at the end of the day, because we are invited by the local society or community or country, and we will be behaving as a kind of supporter of the locals. It's the kind of the mentality we need to consider. We need to be mindful about. And sometimes we see the affected people as kind of a victim, or as let's say weak people. But it's totally different. I think from my experience in the Philippines, Haiyan experience, Typhoon Haiyan back in 2013, I was deployed as an UNDAC member. But international people, actually, those who doesn't know anything about the local system, or sometimes kind of ignorant about the local system, but that's the local people who knows everything about the local. Because where is a local water source, where is the truck to transport the humanitarian goods from A point to B point, everything, every knowledge is in the local. So they are very, very strong actually. And we responders are there as in supporters, not the kind of main character in the drama. So that's what I'm thinking. So the locals, the affected people, are not weak, but they are the most capable people in the context. So that's my point. Thank you.
No, absolutely, I agree. There has to be a shift in the mindset of this. I'm going all the way there to help you. To actually be perceived and seen as and have to respond as service providers, and service providers for a very specific kind of customer, if you want to say that way, which are people that are in need of really specific and necessary services. So I definitely think that the roles have to change somehow. For the affected population, not only to have the right to assistance, but also in having the right to an input into what assistance they should receive and in which terms. This shift should really put people, the affected population, in the center, and as international USAR teams, we have to be very much aware, very humble in the effect and the result of our efforts. At the end of the day, in every single disaster, the amount of lives saved, if we wanna reduce all into that, it's very marginal in comparison to what the population, the neighbors, the family, the local first responders actually achieve. So we're just a support, a plugin that comes and helps. But at the end of the day, the response it's on the shoulders of the local population. So yes, definitely, and that's from the user side, right? From the team members. But from the population, we the three of us come from earthquake-prone countries. I think Tsukasa maybe has a bit more of a shaky ground in Japan, but we've all experienced earthquakes. We know how it works. We know even if it's a strong one or a mild one. We know if it's a one that I can continue sleeping, or oh wow, no, I should move from where I am. So people have that knowledge, and they have the knowledge of how to construct, that they achieve, that they inherit from their parents, and so on. So that's local knowledge that I think should be used, it should be valued, but also complemented with science-based knowledge. Because there's many beliefs about the origin of earthquakes and how we should behave. There's also so much misinformation on social media about what to do, to get in, underneath the chair, to not get underneath the table. So many misleading information that and in this sense, I think the role of public authorities is super important, because they are the responsible ones to develop public policies, awareness programs, in order for people to know what to do. Okay, so people know what's happening, but they need to know what to do. it is very important for me that this works. I wanted to ask Tsukasa in this case, because, for example, we are a very touristic country, but we have many issues, for example, when we have visitors. In many evacuation scenarios, in many situations in which we had Americans, Brazilian tourists, there's an earthquake starting, and yet they have no idea. They are in complete ignorance on what's going on, because they are not used to these type of scenarios. So I learned that in Japan, in many districts, in many areas, this was part of a sort of a briefing into visitors that well, evidently Japan is an earthquake-prone country, and while visiting, you should be aware of this, and you should be able to do this. That, for me, for example, it's a very, very interesting experience of how to go beyond what's expected from you. And I'm actually, I don't think it's something that may cost millions of dollars or whichever currency to implement. So these kind of things are the ones that really, I think, make the difference. These creative ways of doing things that actually make a difference. Yeah. That's the case, right? Tsukasa, was it yeah?
Yeah, I think I forgot the concrete name, but a particular name. But yes, it is. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, and so that's it. I mean, turn this ignorance into actual knowledge and actions to be taken. I think that's a more important part, but that's going to come from policymakers. Definitely, we cannot expect people to go forward. They are doing it by surviving every day in these conditions. so we have to actually expect the policymakers to create a structure in which they can do it in the best way possible.
Yes, I agree with both of you. Of course, this is part of the prevention as well. Involving people as part of the prevention. And we know that Japan has made a relevant policy on prevention, is leading the world in this field. And we are all learning from their experiences. But as you said, Jorge, we all three live in countries which are seismic prone, and we know how much it's important to involve people since the beginning, sharing contingency planning, sharing exercises, information, and best behavior. But there's a long way to do still on this. And now I would say it's time for people to intervene. If I really very much appreciated this Italy, Peruvian, and Japan contribution. Different experience, but when we talk about natural disaster or maybe disaster, all the world come together because we face the same situation, we get the same experiences, and that's the proof, because we come from very different countries, but with a shared experience and a lot of common knowledge, I would say. So I would say it's time for people. We have still 10 minutes remained for listening to whomever is following us and want to make a question. It's quite different, complicated to manage in this format, but it's a really still an important format to keep us going on in sharing ideas and sharing experiences. So the floor is for those who want to step in and make a question to Luigi, Tsukasa, or Jorge. So an appeal to our followers. Hope we had some that listen to us.
Well, if everyone is shy, we can also ask each other.
Yeah, I'm checking the chat.
Yeah, we have a private message for Charbel Becassini. Janine Sass said, is there an opportunity to further leverage this technology to support the community with some instructions for use, such as first aid and so on? So who wants to go first for this technology to further support the community with some instruction? The message is from Janine Sass. Okay, so I can go first, and I would say that the technology can definitely further improve and be leveraged, but for some reason, in some way, we already have something in our hands. I'm thinking about what is now called the geolocalized alert. There are tools that can give us the possibility to inform people, sending a message directly on their phone, leaving from the fact that they are in a, let's say, risk area. So what I would say is that nowadays the most important thing that we experience is to inform people in a timely manner when something happens or is going to happen. And now the technology gives us the possibility to send simultaneous messages to a large number of people, just for the fact that they are living in a specific geographic zone. So if you think about a tsunami, nowadays we can alert with new technologies simultaneously all the people standing in a coastal area, just for the fact that they are in that moment in a coastal area under a threat. And I think that technology on these kind of issues can do a lot. It can even be leveraged in order to support the activities and the community, the resilience of the community. Because as I said, nowadays informing people is mandatory in order to address correct behavior. So if you think about a tsunami, the shortage of a notice of a tsunami, we are in Italy, we are in a Mediterranean area, and if we have an earthquake in Greece, in no more than 20-30 minutes, we could have a wave on our southern coastal areas. So what's the chance to alert people? Really few chance. But if you use technology, you can do that. And you can spread out a message immediately after the earthquake is detected to the people who live in the most risky area in that moment. So I'm definitely, yes, I think that technology can do a lot. It can even be leveraged to support the communities in managing disaster in the aftermath, or in something which is going to happen.
Yeah, I agree that technology can be helpful in many ways. Most countries nowadays that I'm aware of are using it in terms of early warning or alert, or in terms of preparing people to a situation that is imminent or may happen. However, I think also we can use it as a way of sharing information in a preventive way. If they're entering an area in which it's possible for landslides or sudden floods, it should also be a way of spreading information that is valuable. However, it's always a challenge, because getting the people's attention in times of peace, to say it somehow, it's tougher. In Peru, we've tried to have a different approach. Nowadays, we have a certain number of mandatory hours at schools, because really we figured it's the best time in life to approach someone with this type of knowledge, because later in life, it's very much difficult to get people attention. So at schools, a certain amount of hours a year that they have to follow in terms of knowing the risks of the area in which they live, not a general approach, because depending on when you are in the country, you have very different scenarios, and some that don't even apply to where you're living. So it really doesn't make sense to emphasize on them. In a way of preparing you for life somehow, and understanding first, and then learning basic actions. This could be an approach in convenience combination with technology, because I think for prevention nowadays, relying on technology itself, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult, so we have to find different approaches of combinations.
Yes, I agree. We have 4 minutes left. If Tsukasa has no more to add on this, I would go to the question of Shelly Taylor. So we try to cover Shelly as well, because it's online with this. And she says that they have an app which can send a SMS notification, but she's stressing the fact that a pre-crisis information is very relevant too. And I agree on that, because you can inform, alert people, but they have to know beforehand what to do when that message arrives. So this stimulates the local authorities in making a contingency planning and continuous information to people on how to behave in case of an emergency. And what Shelly asked to us is, shouldn't a bigger effort be made by local and international actors to map local services before crisis? I would say yes, because you have to know beforehand what tools you have, what services you have. But I would look at this word services in a very wide perspective. Services, in any case, transport services, of course, telephone services, electricity services. So mapping the services that you have in a community and what is their potentiality is very important to manage a crisis, in my view. But I leave the floor maybe to, if Tsukasa want to step in on this, or
Yeah, thanks very much. Thank you, Luigi, and thank you, Shelly. Yeah, I totally agree with what Shelly said. Pre-crisis information is, I think I will say more important than the post-crisis information. I mean, equally important, because that's what actually Luigi wisely mentioned. The pre-crisis information, if we have that one, we know what to do. As Jorge mentioned, that's a preparedness things. So we do need that one. So the kind of earlier investment of the information, so that will that's totally makes a difference. So that's from myself. And I think we still have another question, but I'm sorry, I will stop here.
Yes, we have we have Janine that asks if performing evacuation drills can also help to prepare the community in times of crisis. Again, I in my personal experience, as much as we involve people, especially in peacetime, let's say, when we don't have an emergency, ongoing emergency, as much as we involve them, the better it is to enhance the resilience of a community. So drills, information, training, anyhow. I experienced, for instance, that the United States have a concept of whole community involvement, and it means that the people are informed in a very deeply way, in a very diffuse way, on what are the risks that they live in. Of course, these imply that people are willing to participate, because sometimes, especially I experienced that in Italy, we say, this will happen to somebody else, which is not me. So why should I know that? Why should I be involved in that drill? But this is not a correct behavior, in my opinion, because we always have to think that it's better to be prepared, even if you don't hope that something happens to you, but it's always better to be prepared. So it's very, very important to involve people, even those who have little access to technologies. And that's another issue that has been touched by Fatiha, that I thank for participating to our conversation. Yes, of course, we have to keep in mind that people have no access to technology as well. And then it means that institutions has to be in charge of reaching everybody. We are now experiencing, for instance, for the COVID vaccine, we are not going too far from our recent experience. COVID vaccine means that, for instance, in our country, we have a platform that people can register, And yes, Charles, we will wrap up very soon. They can register, but they have to have access to technology. And if it doesn't happen, institutions have to be in charge on that. So if you don't mind, I would go to summarize a little bit what we said. We touched different topics, focus on search and rescue activities involving of operators, but even involving of citizens, with a very interesting focus on the role of scientific community, which is very, very important for that. And we all agreed, I would say, that more training, more reading, more information, and especially addressed to people is very important to facilitate the role and the work of search and rescuers. So I would like to thank Tsukasa Katsube from Japan and Jorge Terrones from Peru. I'm Luigi D'Angelo from Italy, and I would like to thank again even Charbel Becassini that supported us, and all of you that listened to us and make questions. And I hope it was exhaustive, and for me, it was a very fruitful session. And thank you very much to all of you.